I'll look at it from like my first gut response to this is it's hard to articulate, because at a surface level, I see how my very close connections benefit me, right? Just at the surface. But then I look at it a little deeper and I go, well, there's two different things here. There's pain and there's gain. Now, a problem and a solution are not the same things, or a problem and an opportunity are not the same things. You don't define one by the other necessarily. So if I didn't have them in my life, I don't know that that would reduce my pain, but it certainly has not increased my gain. Does that make sense? Mm. So the gain that they give to me is not directly correlated to the pain I feel, and they are the antidote in my life because I have them as people who I can be vulnerable to. But the gain that they give to me in my life as friends doing like they understand me, they know I'm weird and that's okay. They have similar things in their life, so I feel like I identify with them and it's a safe space. And sometimes I can have hard conversations with them, and sometimes I don't. Now, if I didn't have them in my life,
imagine you were overseas, you went overseas, or you went off the grid. Do you know what I mean? Like you actually left this area, you left the locale, and you went to Africa off the grid, so to speak. You couldn't contact them again. I know, forget all the other trauma. It's just more, what would it mean if they were not in your life?
Yeah. I mean, I'd identify loss.
Yeah.
Because of what I've felt and because of the benefit they've given me in my life. As a direct contrast to that, I'd identify that. I would, if they weren't there. Now, I'm very fortunate that I can talk to my wife about things. So, you know, it's not like I don't have the opportunity now to be close, to be, you know, like vulnerable with someone. So let's say I'm on that marooned island and I don't have anyone that's super close to me. Yes, I would feel a little bit like, you know, there'd be more open questions. There wouldn't be as many. I wouldn't feel like I'm moving forward with my feelings or my thoughts that I might be feeling aren't in a good place. But it's not always about pain. It's not always about, you know, that disruption. It's just about it's a little bit about identity. You know, like I feel like those really, really close people who know you, it just makes me feel better because they might be like-minded, and they also ask the same questions of God, and they all ask, you know. So what would I feel? It's at the surface I would feel loss, but going a little bit deeper, there's lots of things to unpack there.
Yeah, I like how you said it's not just that pain, because, you know, even as you said, you might joke together in a weird way and just have fun together, and hey, have a look at this and check this out, and it speaks to me of real relationship. You know, do you know what I mean? Like, what is a relationship? It is marked by, I think, the depth upon that we can go with one another, but isn't it also all those frivolous little things that you're talking about? It's the it's said really well in Good Will Hunting. He talks about the piccadillys, the peculiarities about someone that only you know, or you're being let in on, and you get to enjoy, and that's a sign of intimacy and relationship.
So, intimacy is a really, really big one. I think as you have close friends in your life, you learn their love language, and love languages aren't just for husbands and wives, they're for the close people in your life, and they are for communities as well, and they are for employees and co-workers. You know, knowing those things is really, really really great. You know, when you feel relaxed around someone, like you're not, all your senses aren't working in overload, wondering, trying to read them, what you said, was that right? You know, like that's what you feel around those really super close people. And so therefore you feel relaxed to go deep. You can go deep, or you can feel relaxed to be, you know, in a non-judgmental, or you know, you yourself. Again, it has a lot to do with self, and I love that, you know, we have to be right with God. We have to get our identity right with God. We have to be, you know, in that space, to then be beneficial to the close, because we're not only just receiving from the close people, we're not looking at it from that position, we're actually giving to those close people. You know, we're, you know, it's not just like a you know, we're not just content consumers, we're creators, you know, like, but for their benefit. But you can't, like, I think a small group is, and you know, we've talked about this all the time, it's super hard to get the small group together all the time. It's supposed to be a really close, vulnerable group, but it's so hard logistically to get everyone together at this stage in our lives. So, you know, there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of energy. So I don't think that's the way that the close people in your life should be. You could call them your tribe, and then you could call in the context of church, right? Your tribe. There's a pretext of going deep, vulnerable, change. Everyone signs up for that, but everyone has their fears wrapped up in that. Not everyone is completely truthful. And also it's exhausting to constantly work on change and to identify pain. And, you know, that's not where all growth happens. So, or certainly it's not where the experience of that growth happens. Because if we're growing and not reflecting and not being, then what's the point of all that pain and change?
Amazing, Rowan. Like, I think, you know, I really glean from your thoughts on the measures, and sometimes the, you know, the vulnerability or having a deep space, or that might be different for everyone. And so there's certain things at the stage of life as well, like that we may really may find like pivotal for us to spend time or make time for a small group connection. And if we don't get those things, we think, wow, that was a little bit of a waste of time, or we didn't really get to where I thought we'd get to. So there's that side. But then I can almost guess that if we had people like, say, a high school or a uni person or an elderly person in this group, like you said, in a sense, we're the sun with Jesus and things orbit around us. So we got to find out what it is that makes us tick and us come to life in the season that we're in, and be intentional about finding and creating those spaces that we, rather be us, you know, every small group has to have this, and this to succeed and to be measured. And is that right?
Oh, totally. And I think when you force measures of success on things, when they shouldn't be forced, it becomes something that is contrived and does the exact opposite of what its outcome should be. Like you said, with high schoolers, right, they should be structured, and the measure of success is developing in your knowing and your loving and your relationship of God, so that you can then grow in yourself, and all the people around you are doing that all at the same time. So we all must meet at the same time. And here are the ways that we're guided in doing that. Fantastic. I'm 37, I got kids, and my life is upside down. And some of the people in my life who are close to me, their lives are upside down. So there's no way we're going to go, we must meet and we must read these things and we must do these things. That is not something at this stage that anyone will benefit from. But what happened only 2 weeks ago in my small group, when it was weeks before anyone had met again, in terms of the majority of the group, one of the guys who for years is super flaky, never turns up, you know, he's great when he's there, but, you know, doesn't really share a whole lot. So I would say he's part of my small group tribe and he's my friend, but we're not, you know, cultivating a vulnerable thing every single week. What are you paying? You know, we do prayer points, we pray in the room, but we're not really going deep, right? But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, towards the end of that session, he's crying because he said, this is the first time in 15 years, dudes don't really cry, 15 years that he hates his job. and he's wrapped up. His identity is just like, for lots and lots of reasons, in his job. Everyone would recognize that as well. He's been through some things in his life, but I think a measure of success for us is that we're just from a group point of view, just cultivating some sort of very small community, some sort of tribe that allows people to be vulnerable when they want to. If I force people to do it, it's going to have the opposite effect. But this guy, no one would have ever thought that this guy would have done this, been so vulnerable in this way, and said some of the things that we, would not normally hear from him. And he's done that. And now the integration of our private Facebook group has enabled us as a group to openly pray for him, reach out and just let him know in a community context, hey man, just thinking about you, just praying for those things today. And then some people just will heart it, like it, whatever. And it doesn't have to be some really thought out text that's like super deep. It's just, we're just, just touching base, and that's it. And there were no rules, no structure. We're just doing life together. And we'll have young kids and problems in our lives. And maybe we're blessed if we are in our 30s and we know people who have gone through these things. We're actually, how much does Paul say that all of these things are a blessing to us, that we would be closer to him because of the afflictions and the at no point does Jesus say life is easier. And so we're not supposed to cultivate an easier life. We're just got to be there for each other. So it's almost like we're just, releasing the pressure a little bit right now. And it's a longer bow.
I love that. It's the safe space for people to be able to bear their lives in that moment. They may not always be like that, but that's cultivating a culture, I guess, of when you do gather. No, brilliant stuff, Rowan. I think you've touched on a lot of stuff, but I think for Kinsen, I'd love to hear from you as well. Like, I know you've moved overseas, lived in different places, having to establish new community and people around you. And I just wanted to ask this other question, and you can go wherever you want with this, but what to you as a Christian have you felt has been some of the richest experiences of small group community or community in your world, in your life?
Thanks, Deb. I'm going to take a couple of themes from what Rowan had shared, which was, I would say, like intimacy and identity. So when I kind of think about that second question, the first thought I had was of a small group that I had become part of in Shanghai, right? And one of the guy, it was all couples. So he kind of came together and he was like, you know what? He had been part of an intimate small group when he was in Beijing. He moved down to Shanghai and he had joined what I would say like your typical kind of like small group structure, right? It's like you get together, maybe there's like a little bit of a meal, there's a Bible, maybe there's some like praise and worship, there's a Bible study, and then there's some prayer at the end, right? It's like typically it's like when people are about to leave or it's like late at night, so you save like the last 5 minutes of sharing in prayer, and like that's the night,